Hey everybody, welcome to the stream. This is the advice stream. I'm your host, Jeremy International. The advice stream is the only stream, as far as you know, as far as I know, where we play old video games and we give advice to the listeners at home. We are not playing video games today, though. We're trying something a little different. It's actually not that different because it's what we did last year, where every week in the month of October, which is what it is. Oh my gosh, I am echoing again like I always am. Every week in the month of October, we'll have guests. Sometimes we'll have multiple guests. Sometimes we just have one guest where we'll be discussing a different horror movie that we've all watched previous to the call and previous to the stream. And then we're going to discuss it. This week we have our regular, most favorite guest, Oldmin, will be joining us shortly, where we will be discussing The Lord of Illusions, 1995. I enjoyed it. We'll hear what Oldman has to say, and I think there's a little bit we can talk about, maybe. We also have lots of questions coming in from the internet. If you would like, as always, to seek advice from me and my guests on the stream, as well as the audience at home who's welcome to contribute, you can head on over to JeremyInternational.com. There's a contact form at the bottom you can use to submit questions, which we will read anonymously on the internet and then do our best to help you. If you don't want to be anonymous, you can also just throw it into the chat. We're on Twitch, we're on YouTube, and we'll discuss it from there too. It's up to you. Lots of different options. We got some people coming into Twitch. If you're new, hey, it's Jugsy. Jugsy says, yay, finally made it. Sorry for missing the last couple. I won't be very chatty, but I'm listening. I appreciate your presence in the chat, Jugsy. Welcome back. I hope everything's going well for you down under. You missed a Warhammer game last week. I was flying solo and I played a little bit of, what's that game called? Bolt Gun on the Nintendo Switch, and it is a hoot. I know that Jugsy is a Warhammer fan, so check it out, Jugsy. Bolt Gun on the Switch. It's probably on other things too, but I enjoyed it. Snacking on some dry Honey Nut Cheerios because I'm a toddler today. I got a little bit of whiskey. I'm just going to responsibly enjoy a little bit so this as stream goes on. But, oh my God, that's good. Hope everyone's doing well. We've in the U.S. here, we've had some bad storms down south. I hope everyone watching the show is staying safe down there and staying dry, and hoping for the best because I know there's a new one coming in. But yeah, there's lots going on in my personal life in the world. There'll probably be lots of things for us to discuss. Jugsy says, Bolt Gun is very cool. Did you finish Space Marine? I just started 2, and it's great so far. I never got to finish Space Marine 1, Jugsy, but I did start Space Marine 2. I'm actually pretty far into Space Marine 2. I don't know if it feels like I'm getting close to the end, and loving that game. That game is beautiful. It looks like $1 million on my 4K TV with my PS5. The PS5 Pro seems like a waste of money. Not that we're talking about that right now. Yeah, I've had a blast playing that game. I've had so much fun playing that game, in fact, that I've been really tempted to buy a PlayStation Portal so I can play it in bed. Because not having the option to play a video game in bed bums me out. One of the things I love about my Switch. I've also started playing Mario 64 with my daughter, who's 4 years old. And she is so into that game. We're having so much fun. When I say play together, she watches me play. That game's bringing back memories to me because, man, I played a lot of that game when it first came out. And it's been super fun. I don't know why. I've played a bunch of random old games with her. And Mario 64 is really stuck with her. So that's what I've been doing with my video game time. What have I been doing otherwise? I've been really enjoying the current run, although I'm like 6 months behind, of the Fantastic Four comics still. Those are really great. I was at a party the other day and talking to a bunch of people about what comics they're reading. And there were a bunch of people that were like, I don't like the Fantastic Four. They're boring. And I don't know where they got that idea from. Obviously, there's been some not great FF arcs in the past FF arcs. But the current one, all the covers are painted by Alex Ross. He's not doing the interiors, of course, are great. And if you're looking for some really fun mainstream superhero comics to read, couldn't recommend it more. Yeah. Music wise, I'm not listening to anything particularly new or interesting. What am I listening to music wise is a really good question. I spent a big part of my day today listening to, in the car, I had a couple doctor's appointments, so I was driving around, listening to the soundtrack to the Rocky Horror Picture Show. It's that time of year, it just kind of eases into my bones. And that's always fun. I can sing every song on that album at the top of my lungs. Not very well, but sometimes it's not enough that you sing good. You got to sing loud too. Even a really good singer singing quiet, who cares? I'd rather sing loud and bad than good and quiet. So that's been my life. I got my flu and COVID shots today. They got to give them to you, one in each arm, so my arms are a little sore. That's a good reminder that you should get your flu shots. You should make sure your COVID shots are up to date. Remember, getting vaccinated isn't just about keeping you safe. It is about keeping the other people in your community safe who aren't able to get shots for whatever medical reasons. I'm making a distinction there between people that aren't able to get shots and people that are unwilling to get shots. Those are two different things. Just a friendly reminder, the flu vaccine, isn't as effective as the COVID vaccine is. People that get the flu vaccine still, I think it's like half the time still end up getting the flu, but they don't get it as bad. So that's good. All right, let's bring in our guest, Oldmin, if you're there and you're ready. How is it going, Oldmin?
Ups and downs, some ups and downs like usual.
Would you
Yeah,
say you're averaging more ups than downs or more downs than ups?
more
On
downs than
average.
ups for sure.
No, that's too bad. That's a
Yeah,
bummer.
it is.
Have you
Um,
tried listening to the Rocky Horror Picture soundtrack recently? Because that ups my ups a little bit more.
I haven't. I haven't actually. I mean, I still enjoy it. I like it. The last time that I saw it was like maybe 5 or 6 years ago, in one of the performances. They have people that put on the performances along with the movie, and I
Yeah,
saw
yeah,
it at
yeah.
East Street Cinema, and it was not good. It was
No,
not good.
that's a bummer.
Yeah, it was as if they hadn't really changed the script from like 2006 until, a few years ago. So a lot of the jokes were like really, really dated references and not in like a cute way. It was like,
Yeah.
what are you doing kind of way.
Comedies had a lot of like comedy with like lowercase c has gone through a lot of evolutions over the last few years. So I think anybody that's got like a script or a routine that was funny a few years ago might want to double check on
Yeah.
if it's still that way. We got a chat from a first time chatter, Beredith. Beredith says, no one that says ups and downs ever means more ups than downs. I
It's
feel
so
like I
true.
sometimes say that. I literally said earlier today to somebody ups and downs, but I feel like right now at least I've got
I'm
more
so
ups than
happy
downs.
for you. And it sounds really cute, your daughter playing or watching you play Mario 64. The image in my mind of that is very cute.
It's adorable, and every time we get a star, we give each other a big high five.
No.
And that game is, it's a little chunky because it's a very early 3D game. And
Yeah.
so there's a lot of things that have been perfected in, kind of 3D collectathons, like any of the other Mario 3D games, for example,
Hmm.
that work a lot better than this one does. They were still learning a lot because it was a pretty revolutionary game. But it's such a classic. It's on the Switch's online service that includes 64 games. So it's
Hmm.
really easy to play if anyone out there's never played it or haven't played it since you were a kid. I remember we used to go to our local Blockbuster and you could rent a Nintendo 64. And we did that for a
Yeah.
little while before my brother and I saved up enough money to buy one. And that was the only game we ever rented for. That's the only game we ever needed for the 64, really. What else is going on, Oldman? You listening to anything? What's your music situation like these days?
Um, I guess over the past few years, I've really just kind of slid further and further into jazz and ambient music
Uh-huh.
without lyrics, but I like some pop artists too. I'm still listening to Dottie Freyr, the Icelandic fellow who was in Eurovision, but it got canceled for COVID, so he would have won. And then I'd like, I don't know, listening to some old Harvey Danger.
Oh wow.
Yeah, this is punk rock season for me, I think.
Yeah, when
So
the weather
I
starts to
have been
cool
listening to a
down,
bit more of that.
I get really into metal.
Hmm.
I think was it last week or the week before I was talking about a Dio era Black Sabbath record I've been listening to a lot lately. Jugsy says New Blood Incantation album is very chill and uses some interesting instruments. Big recommendation. Is that Jugsy? I don't know anything about that at all. New Blood Incantation, is that ambient? I don't usually care for ambient music, to be honest. But I'd be willing to give it a shot if Jugsy says it's cool.
Well, we've certainly got some blood incantations to talk about tonight.
We do. This movie has a lot of blood in it. It has a lot of
Yes.
early computer CGI effects in it.
I thought that it was good. I liked the old CGI stuff in
Me
it.
too. Especially because if you try to like put yourself into the shoes of a movie theater audience person at that time period, it would have
Hmm.
been like anything you'd ever seen before. I thought it was done in really weird and cool ways most of the time. Should we talk about the movie a little bit? You just want to jump into the movie? We do have a lot of advice questions to get through today, also, I'm happy to say.
Okay, I mean,
But
it's up to you, my man.
let's talk about the movie just for maybe we'll just dig in a little bit and then we'll get back into it later. So,
Hmm.
a little bit of background if you haven't seen it. I meant to do a little bit of research to see if it's streaming anywhere. I have a old physical copy of this I picked up at like a library sale a million years ago that I digitized and sent to Oldman so he could see it too. But I don't know if it's easy to get to this or not. It's a MGM distributed movie, so it's maybe who's MGM now? Who has MGM? Peacock? I don't know. I don't know where it's streaming, but it might be streaming somewhere. So this is a film called Lord of Illusions. It's 1995, written and directed by Clive Barker. Um, One of my favorite horror novelists, at least horror fiction writers, Clive Barker. Clive Barker, if you're unfamiliar, his most famous contributions probably Hellraiser. Clive Barker did. Am I getting this right? Clive Barker do Scream, or was that somebody else?
I don't know.
I don't think he did Scream. I'm thinking of somebody else. But he also did the Candyman as well. So this is the reason I wanted to watch this movie, and I think I mentioned this on the stream a little while ago too. Is I've been really digging Hellraiser lately and just thinking a lot about Clive Barker's work in general. And I didn't know any of this, but Clive Barker's written kind of like a noir, like detective mystery series that takes place in the same universe, the same continuity as the Hellraiser stories do. And the
Hmm.
detective is this guy named Harry D'Amour, who's played by, confusingly, by Scott Bakula in this movie. I love the cast for this movie. I don't think, even though he's gorgeous in this movie, also he looks like $1,000,000 every two of the entire movie. I don't think he was well cast in this particular role. Do you feel the same way?
Yeah, I loved the back tattoo on Scott back tattoo. It made me laugh. It made me laugh when
Yeah,
that popped out.
he's so I should figure out the timing for this. He's playing the character that he plays in Quantum Leap. I feel like, and he's
Does he
very.
really have any other register though? Like I'm not sure he
Maybe he
does.
doesn't. That's fair. He's so aw shucks, and he just comes across as
Yeah.
being like yeah, he comes across as being like a really sweet guy in a fucked up world, even though that's not how I think the character is intended to be played. And So while he's definitely, this is like peak like hunky Bakula. Uh,
Yeah.
I don't know if he was cast well in it. It also kind of took me out of the movie a few times because like the guy, like the incarnation of evil who dies at the beginning of the movie, and then the whole movie is about trying to stop him from being resurrected, is George's boss from Seinfeld, the one
Yep.
that he tries to Photoshop out of the picture. And
Mm-hmm.
I had a really hard time being scared of that guy because of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You said you've been really into Hellraiser lately. Did I tell you that I watched the first four Hellraiser movies last month?
I don't know if you did. All four of them? I don't think
That's a
I've seen all
coincidence.
four.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean they're not all great.
no.
But like many horror movies from that era, in the fourth one, it's part of it is set in space because that's what you had to do with your horror movie sequels back in
Yeah.
the 90s.
Because
If you're
someone like,
getting up to three or four or five, it's got to be in space.
because they're like three or four lines of code in, and they're like, well, what haven't we done yet? And then the answer to that is inevitably space.
Yeah, but so I am it took me a minute to recognize that it was the same writer director guy who did Hellraiser because I'm not all that familiar with Clive Barker. I guess I did know it in the back of my head, but for a while there when I was watching this movie, I was like, wow, this has Hellraiser vibes.
Yeah. It definitely does. I'd say that Clive Barker's vibe is like if H.P. Lovecraft was into S&M.
That's a
Is
good summary.
I think that sums up kind of everything. Like you unlock an ancient, unknowable evil, but it is really just like a leather daddy on the other side of
Yeah,
the curtain of reality.
sexy and horrific all at the same time.
Yeah. Um. So here's the question I have. So first off, are we in concurrence? The only film criticism I ultimately care about is like or don't like. I liked. Did you like?
Oh yeah, I liked it. I liked
Good.
it. It
Me
was
too.
good old cheesy 90s horror movie,
Yeah.
like
It also
just
felt
exactly what it says on the tin.
there was something weirdly David Lynch about it, and like the pacing of it. Like the pacing's just a little slow. Like people talk
Hmm.
a little off. Like it's just there's a little bit
Yeah.
more of a pause. Like when a scene begins before the dialogue starts. It's just the pacing was a little. I'm sure this is all deliberately done, at least in David Lynch's case. And I'm imagining that Clive Barker did this too. It's a little. The cadence is a little weird, and it keeps you kind of engaged in the movie because you're feeling uneasy and you don't know why. Um,
Right.
so here's the only other question. Ultimately, I'm sure we'll have many more that I care about when we're talking about movies. And Oldman, you and I have hung out enough, and we've talked about media enough. I'm sure you've heard me say this before, but I had a. This isn't the someone goes on a journey or stranger comes to town
I
conversation.
was
It's
gonna
not that. Yeah,
say
it's not
if
that.
it was that one.
So I had a different professor. Oh, it could have been the same professor. It was a long time ago. I can't remember now. Who said that when someone asks you, "What is this story about?" and if you can't answer that question, "What is this story about?" in any other way except recounting the series of events of the plot, then it's probably not a very good story.
Hmm.
So that's my question: is what without just going through the series of events that make up the plot of this story, what is Lord of Illusions about? I'm not sure I have an answer to that besides the series of events that
Yeah,
make up the
I
plot of
mean,
the story.
I wouldn't say it has like heavy or deep themes at all. It's very much a popcorn movie. I My answer, like just on the spot, would be it's about the evil side of real magic, the corrupting nature of discovering these arcane secrets from the other side.
Yeah. If for those watching at home that maybe haven't seen it, so a very very brief kind of spoiler free summary is that some people that do sleight of hand like card trick magic are actually not doing sleight of hand magic, but actually have evil magic powers. That's more, or and then on top of that is there was a cult, and the leader of the cult was trying to bring about the end of the world, and then they kill him at the beginning, and then they're trying to bring him back, and the girl isn't who you think it is. That's the plot of the movie. Meredith says has a link to justwatch.com. Never heard of justwatch.com. Free with ads on Tubi. That's good. I don't mind Tubi. I like Just Watch as an easy way to see everywhere something is streamable. Oh, so Just Watch is a way to look up a title and see where it's streaming. I didn't know about that, Meredith. Thank you.
Letterboxd does something similar, but it's unreliable, I've noticed.
Well, I mean, and the problem is stuff gets taken down and then moved around so frequently that it's hard to keep track of that stuff. That's why I'm still big on physical media, at least for the content that's important to me.
Sure.
This movie's not one of those, though. I mean, I liked it, but let's be honest.
I was reminded of a tweet that I saw yesterday when the movie was ramping up at the beginning, which was, you ever get so lonely you watch a cult documentary and can't help but feel jealous of them in the first half? And maybe not this particular cult,
yeah.
But I can relate to that feeling.
I mean, besides the fact that they cut off big chunks of their like scalps and were bleeding, I don't.
Yeah,
why did they do that?
Those bald caps looked so fake,
so bad.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that took me out of the movie just almost as much as the bad guy being George Costanza's boss. But at the end, when he comes back and he's all, I guess that's a spoiler, and he's all gross, and it starts to rain. They look like they're having a blast in the rain. I mean, who doesn't like to dance around in your underwear in the rain?
Yeah, I mean, until they start sinking into the mud.
Yeah. But up until that point, and I think they were pretty far into the ground when they were sinking before they actually got upset about it. So,
yeah, definitely a good like Halloween season popcorn horror movie with a lot of gore. Kind of a sexy subtext. Oh my gosh, the sex scene was so funny.
Yeah, I know.
But I know it's like, it wasn't like any better or worse, I guess, than sex scenes in general in movies back then. But it just reminded me like how goofy some of those 90s movies sex scenes could be.
Definitely, they were not interested in representing actual intercourse between two people in any way.
Yeah.
Whatsoever. Yeah. I'm trying to look at the rest of the cast because there's another actor in it that I've seen in a million other things that was also delightful. Is that Yeah, Kevin J. O'Connor. If you have a second to Google Kevin J. O'Connor, once you see his face, you'll recognize him right away. He's been in a million things.
Yeah, I recognized him too.
Yeah. He was good. He was good in it. I don't know what happened to him at the end. I don't understand that part.
Yeah, he kind of just had an ignominious death.
It
wasn't really a big to do about him dying, despite him being one of the central characters in the movie.
All right, well, so maybe we'll circle back around and talk more about Lord of Illusions a little bit later in the evening. But I'm going to go ahead and say, if you like horror movies, particularly if you like kind of that 90s vibe of horror movies, and like if you're into like film noir and like hard-nosed detective stuff, this movie I think does a really good job of pulling that off too. I'd recommend checking it out. Apparently it's on Tubi, according to Meredith. All right, let's get into some questions.
Let's do it.
I always want to take a minute to say I picked a bunch of questions from other sources on the internet, and then we have a few that were written in by audience members that we'll get into as well. On the advice stream, we always acknowledge the existence of sex. If you are uncomfortable with the acknowledgement of the existence of sex, this is a good time for you to go do something else. I don't know what that would be. I don't know what that's like, but that's you. Okay. Question number 1. I met a man 11 years older than me. I'm 25. He's 36. It's a pretty big age gap. Earlier this morning, okay, let me rephrase that so it makes a little bit more sense. I met a man 11 years older than me early this morning during my commute. He approached me and asked for my number. Who does that? And we talked the entire train ride until it was my stop. After talking to him, I felt so swiped and lost in our conversation. I forgot to even get my morning coffee. I also don't know what that's like. Anyways, he ended up texting me later that evening, and I took a chance and met up with him and went over to his house. We had sex twice. It was good. It was a fun time. He asked me to text him when I made it home and that he wanted to see me again. Does this make me a whore? Is what this person's asking. Do you think he thinks I'm a whore or easy? I just really found him attractive and decided to take a chance. I saw this a few days ago and copied and pasted it because I feel like, I mean, I think we all know what the answer to this is, but I feel like it's a good starting point for a bigger conversation. Hey, Oldmin Sama's here too. Well, the whole gang's showing up. Hey, everybody. So this person's short answer, met a man on the morning commute train, exchanged phone numbers. He texted her later that day. She went over his house. They had sex 2 times. And then she went home. He says he wants to see her again. And she's feeling like he might think that she's easy or promiscuous because she did that. And she doesn't know how to feel about it. I guess she's looking for it because her question is, do you think he thinks I'm easy? Do you want to share anything about that, Oldman? As always, everyone in the chat, please feel free to chime in with your thoughts as well.
I mean, that's not the question that I expected her to ask when she started out saying she's in a relationship with somebody. But no, of course it doesn't make her a whore. It doesn't. People have sex on first dates all the time. There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with not doing that either. But yeah, that is not the question that I expected at the end of that. What's your take, Jeremy?
I mean, I don't like the word whore, so let's just say nobody's one of those, and we'll drop that one where it is. That's not a term. That's a term people make up to be mean to people.
No, I don't use that word either.
Yeah, so I'm not going to say that. I mean, it's not like a word that's forbidden to say, but I feel like it's a word that's ultimately meaningless and is often weaponized against people. So let's throw that one out. Nobody's one of those. But the question about, are you easy? I mean, like, easy to get to fun, easy to get to laugh, easy to have a good time and be chill and cool. Who doesn't want to be that? Like, I think that sex aside, being able to transition into let's have fun. Fun is a skill, whether fun is having sex with someone you've been with for 50 years or someone that you met on your early commute that day, whether fun is going on a roller coaster or, I don't know, making ice cream sundaes after dinner one day or something. That fun is something that not everybody's able to do easily. So if you're easily able to have fun, if you're easily able to connect to a human being in this really profound way that sex can be, and it seems like maybe it was, then that's good. That should be something that comes easy to you. You should be proud that you're able to do that easily, that you don't have hangups. I mean, clearly she does because she's asking this question, but at least your hangups don't get in the way of you in the moment, following your instincts, your desires, your passions, your heart, your whatever. I think that's a good thing to be. I think this idea that if you sleep with someone on the first date, they're not going to want to have a serious relationship with you is nonsense.
I don't really even understand that. I can't get in that headspace.
Yeah, me neither. I mean, I think I'm of the mindset that you can't know if you're going to get serious with someone or not until you've had sex with them. At least once, but probably a few times. So, I think that, I mean, sex on the first date, I'm not going to say is like standard, but it's pretty common and it has been for a long time. I think that the letter writer really needs to dig in to kind of this cultural and institutional, probably religious guilt
Yeah.
that they're feeling. We're actually going to be talking about guilt a little bit more in another one of the questions we have. Guilt might be the theme of the episode tonight.
Oh, wonderful.
So I always feel like I have hot takes on guilt. But I think that it sounds like you took a chance with a person that you liked, and it's paid off at least so far. And that's a really great thing to be able to do, to be able to take risks um, in a controlled and safe and thought out and intelligent way is a beautiful thing to be able to do. And I think you haven't done anything wrong. Clearly, he doesn't think you've done anything wrong. At least there's no indication that he does yet. So I hope that you can.
Well, we don't know what her arrangement is with her boyfriend, but assuming they're
She doesn't have a
monogamous,
boyfriend. There's
I
no
thought that's
boyfriend.
what she said. She started out saying, "Oh, I have this boyfriend who's a lot or 11 years older
She
than
met
me."
him on the train that morning.
I see it. So it's I was confused then. I
Yeah,
thought she was. That's why I was like, "Whoop! What's this question about?"
met on the
Uh,
train during the morning commute.
okay.
We're
Yeah,
sleeping
I thought
together
this.
that night.
I completely misunderstood that part.
Jugsy says, just need to have a convo if you're both looking for a relationship or friends with benefits. But either way, or neither way, there's no black market on the writer's. There's no black mark on the writer's name. Yeah,
No.
I agree with all of that. There might be people that'll hear that same situation and decide to judge you for it, but you don't, fuck them. You don't need their judgment, and their opinion shouldn't matter to you.
Hmm.
They're judging you on insecurities and hangups that are outdated and don't have much place in the world probably anyone has ever lived in, but certainly not the world we live in today.
Yeah, and if this guy does judge her for it, I just can't. I cannot get myself to understand the viewpoint of a man who's like, I had sex with this person on the first date, so I'm going to judge her negatively for that. What is wrong with you? What's wrong with you?
Yeah. People are like that though
I
sometimes.
know, but still, I don't get it. I don't
Yeah.
understand it.
I definitely, I mean, I think if we're talking about the potential negatives to moving in this way, it's that you don't I don't know how their date over dinner went, but typically when you're taking more time before you get physical with someone, you're having more times to be able to kind of suss out whether they're trustworthy or not. You're able to have conversations about STI experience and dating experience. You're able to have conversations about like kinks and what they're into and what they're not into. You're able to have conversations about what their stance on abortion. Don't have sex with people that are, if you're a female style person that has the ability to become pregnant, don't have sex with people that don't respect your right to choose. Those are things that are the only reasons I can think of why it would be worth taking a little bit more time is just so you can assess all of those different factors. But maybe you did. I've certainly had first dates where all of those things and more were brought up and
Hmm.
discussed thoroughly. So I if you don't, and I don't want to say like rush because I don't like the contonation of that either. But if you don't take your time before sleeping with somebody, then just make sure that you're being cautious and following up, that they're safe and responsible and are going to be respectful of you, regardless of how the relationship proceeds. I think are the important things with that. We talk about all the time on the show how you need to be careful with who you have babies with. People don't often do that for, I'm sure, a variety of legitimate reasons. But I think so much of the struggles, at least that I hear about on this show, are people that had babies with someone that they weren't being particularly careful with. So use your protection, If you're on the pill, stay on the pill. Get an IUD, condoms, all of that, please. Because until you know someone really well and you know that you're ready to have a kid with them, don't. Um, what else we have here? Berida says the thing that hasn't been addressed is the 11-year age gap, but it feels like that was included intentionally. Yeah, people have really different and strong views of that type of age gap, for sure. And I don't know if I'm the best person, because I mean, not currently and not in a long time, but I've been in relationships with similar age gaps than that, and I don't know if I'm the best person to make assessments or value judgments on that. But that is quite a big age gap. But also, 25 is really kind of, I mean, maybe the earliest of the earliest age, but an age where I think someone has been able to start living their life and have some kind of self identity and self development where they wouldn't necessarily be susceptible to an ill-intended older person that's trying to manipulate or groom them or something like that.
Right. And this is a guy she just met on a train. They've been on one date. I didn't hear anything that sounded like an improper exercise of power dynamics based on age or anything like that. But yeah, people in their mid 20s date people in their 30s. When you get older, that it's not, very, the age gap thing, in my opinion, for much younger people, that age gap can really, really matter. As you
Yeah.
get older, you can date people who are older than you or a bit younger than you, and it expands a little bit. Like, for example, a 35-year-old man dating a 46-year-old woman or a 50-year-old woman, nothing wrong with that. That would be my take on it.
Yeah.
Your age divided by 7 is that the not divided by
No, I feel
7?
like I've heard that
It's
before.
divided by
Something
2
like that.
plus 7. Divided by 2 plus 7 is the general
Yeah.
rule. And I'm not going to do the math here, but yeah, it definitely changes a bit once you get a bit older.
Fred Undead, who's not in the chat, I don't know if you're watching at home or not. Fred Undead says you typically on the show has said that 30 is really the age where a big age gap doesn't count anymore. But younger than 30, it does.
Yeah.
And this person
It is definitely on the line. It's on the line.
It's on the line.
But yeah, I didn't hear anything that sounded like she was being manipulated or fooled or taken advantage of in this story.
Well, if she was, she probably wouldn't know it because that's
of course. Well, she might have suspicions.
But
People have their suspicions.
Yeah, let's take it at face value and say, as in all early stages of a relationship, watch your doors and corners. Make sure that this is a person that is worthy of your time and affections, that they're respectful and trustworthy and kind. Kindness is very important. Make sure they're all of those things. If they're not, then however many dates you wait until you have sex with them isn't going to matter. But those are the most important things. Jugsy says, I like the rule too, as long as there's no other sketchy power dynamic or pre-existing relationship. Yeah, like absolutely. She's like, oh yeah, I bumped into my boss on the train. That's right. That's a no-no.
Yeah, or I bumped into my 5th grade teacher.
Yeah.
Or something like that. That is not okay.
Well, I mean, is it though? If 5th grade was a long time ago, a 5th grade teacher doesn't have any kind of power over you.
I would say no. That squeaks me out. It squeaks me out because of the pre-existing power relationship.
Yeah, but it was a long time ago. What's the What's the expiration date on a power dynamic before? I don't know the answer to that. Meredith says, hit it on the head with power dynamics. It's about consent. If you are both able to freely give or withdraw consent in every aspect of the relationship, the age gap like that is fine. I'm more or less inclined to agree with Meredith on this one. I would say if she was like 21 or 22, that's really would be kind of like where the red line for me, I think, would be drawn for someone that's 36. Okay, here is a question that's come in from the website. I like this one. I think this gives us a lot of interesting things to discuss. It's also a little bit less troubling than most of the questions. Not that it's still very high stakes, but this isn't someone that's dealing with anything that's going to leave any of us particularly bummed out, I hope.
Okay.
Hi, Advice Stream. My question isn't super specific, but I'm seeking a bit of wisdom. My partner and I are getting married this weekend. Congratulations. I know who this person is. I'm not saying names, but big mazel to this person for getting married this weekend. After having to move our original date up to accommodate some major lifestyle changes, financial issues, and to get the paperwork done before the election. Now, a lot of people I know were scrambling to get paperwork done before the election. For this reason, our celebration is a much smaller affair than I had always hoped for. With only our close friends and a small handful of with only our close family and a small handful of local friends present. We're saving a much larger party for next year after we've hopefully reestablished some financial stability. Don't get me wrong, I'm more excited than I've ever been, but I'm super nervous about this weekend and making sure everyone has a good time. I'm pretty self-conscious about the lack of wedding favors and a great DJ, and it's been a lot of pressure to put this together without the advice of a planner. It's stressful. Do you have any advice for how I can chill the fuck out and make sure I enjoy myself?
It's a sweet question.
Yeah. First off, letter writer, I'm so happy. I did not know this was happening so fast. And I wish you all the best. That's very exciting. I am obviously a big fan of marriage. When you find the right person to get married to, and I'm very happy for both of you. As far as before I go off on my tangent, Oldman, do you have any thoughts on this one? Anything you want to share?
Well, I had a very small wedding. That didn't work out, but not because the wedding was small. And yeah, I feel like uh, hmm, I'm not sure. Everybody's going to have jitters in advance of the wedding. That's something that is universal. Is that you're going to have some jitters. You're going to have some worrying. Oh my gosh, it has to go well. It has to go perfect. It doesn't have to go perfect. And also, like the thing about the wedding favors, I guess I understand where they're coming from with that. If that's what they had in mind before, and they would have preferred, or they had imagined it before that it would be a bigger thing. But ultimately, the people that are coming to your wedding, if they're like, if they're going to judge you for not having wedding favors, that they're not there for the right reason. That's not what a wedding is about. The wedding is about sharing that moment with your loved ones, and it doesn't always have to be a big, blast. It doesn't have to be a super expensive and detailed and all that stuff. I'm sure the letter writer already knows all that stuff. But at the same time, yeah, I don't know if there's probably no way to completely chill out about this, but just remembering that it's supposed to be fun for everyone and for them to express their love for the people getting married, and that's ultimately the core of it. The other stuff is just details. I guess that would be my advice.
That's really good advice. Weddings are one of the many things I feel like have been so kind of like industrialized that it's really hard to forget what they're actually for, what's their purpose. And I think that's the important thing, is that nothing really changes if you're already, both of you, committed and living together and everything else, like I know these folks are. But it's a moment to kind of formalize and then to celebrate your commitment to each other. And if you have just a small group of immediate family and a small number of friends, then in a lot of ways I feel like that makes it more more real. It makes it more intimate. It makes it more meaningful than if you had, 600 people and you spent $100,000 or something on it.
Yeah.
My take on this also, as far as like nerves or jitters about big life events go, everything in life, everything in life is everything that's meaningful in life, everything that's important in life is like a play. When you produce a play, you don't rehearse and build the set and get the costumes and have everyone memorize their lines and do the blocking and get everything just perfect and then say, okay, now we're ready to open. That's not how a play works. You pick a date months, maybe years in advance, and then wherever you're at that date is what ready means. And whether you're getting married, whether you're having a kid, whether you're going to college or anything, any of these big life moments work that way. You don't wait until you're ready, because if you do, then you'll wait forever, or at least way too long. You pick a day, you pick a time, and then that whatever wherever you're at that day and time is what ready means. And this is one of those things. That's why it's important. That it's not what you envisioned. So few things in life are what we envision. It sucks, but that's true. But what's important is what's important. What's important. We just talked about what's important is that you and your partner are going to be together. You're going to celebrate with whomever it is you can get together to celebrate. If in a year you've got more money, things are looking better and more prosperous, then you can do something that's maybe a little bit closer to what your vision is. Maybe that doesn't happen next year. Maybe it happens the year after that. Maybe it happens the year after that. Maybe it happens in 2 weeks. It's so hard to predict anyone's future in the times we unfortunately find ourselves in. So focus on what's important. Whatever it's this weekend, so Saturday, Sunday, whichever day it is, that's wherever you're at, that's when you'll be ready. If you want my advice for how I kind of handled my wedding and the stress I was feeling then, is I picked one thing that I could manage and I focused on making that really special. And it was really two things, but ultimately the one thing I spent the most of kind of like emotional labor on was making a playlist for the wedding. That became something that I could manage. It was free. I already, whatever music I already had access to at the time. And make sure that you download it onto your device first so that you're not dependent on Wi-Fi network. And that was the thing that I invested in. Obviously our wedding wasn't huge, but it wasn't little. And we had a wedding planner and we had catering. All that stuff was taken care of way in advance. There wasn't much I could do to control that by the time, the wedding was a week or 2 weeks away. That was all kind of finalized. But as far as the day of goes, with all of the people and kind of all of the pressure, I've picked one thing that I could really control, and that made me feel a lot better. But none of that matters because you're doing it this weekend, and wherever you're at when that day comes along is what ready means. Embrace that. Embrace the negotiation of what you had in your mind and what reality is able to get you, and focus on that and focus on what really matters, which is being together with the people that are most important to you, at least those that can make it, to celebrate the stuff that really matters in life. That's what I have to say about that. Did we get any other comments here? Amin Sama says the most important thing is getting together with the person that they love. That's definitely true. The party will continue. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
I like that saying. And then also, since I had a small wedding and I've been married for 7 years now. Congratulations, Omen Sama. That's terrific.
Yeah, congrats.
Yeah, it's going to be 10 years for me and Fred Undead next year.
Are you going to do something?
Yeah, I think we want to renew our vows. I think we might go to Vegas.
Nice.
To do that. We'll see if we can get some folks to come with us. All right, should we keep going? You want to keep going?
Yeah, I was just sort of lazily looking through the Wikipedia article for this movie, and I found a funny quote from Clive Barker
Okay, let me hear it.
where he said, I can look through this movie, and every 2 or 3 minutes I'm saying, geez, why did I do that? Why did I do this? Well, the answer is, I got 50 things right and 30 things wrong, and that's a pretty good batting average for me. You make your work and you move on. You do that, and you do that whatever medium you work in.
Man, that's just a good life lesson in general.
Yeah.
Yeah, words of wisdom from Mr. Barker. That's terrific.
I got a Barker in the background over here. I got to close the window.
Literally. That's I love that. That's also, I think, relevant to that last question. Is as long as the percentage of things you get right is at least a little bit higher than the percentage of things you get wrong, you're in pretty good shape.
Yeah, I agree. I want to talk about Hellraiser a little bit, because since we were both like in a Hellraiser zone, apparently, just by chance, you and me. Which one is your favorite of the ones you've seen?
So I've read the book that it's based on. I saw the original and I saw the remake that came out a couple years ago. That's actually all.
I gotta see the remake. I
I
have to say. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
One of the episodes later this month. I don't think I've committed to a date. We're gonna have a guest on and we're gonna compare the original to the remake. Will be the purpose of that episode.
I'll try to watch the remake before then.
Yeah, please.
For sure.
You can get it in the same location you got Lord of Illusions, if that's helpful.
Very good to know. But yeah, but my favorite was 2. I really liked 2, and not because it's not well written. It's not. It's very cheesy and schlocky. But I made a post about this in the group because I was really shocked at the creativity of the world building in 2. I can just give you a quick rundown, which is that in 2. The woman from the first movie goes into hell, not hell, the creepy Hellraiser realm.
Yeah, Cenobite's land.
Yeah, the Cenobites' land, and they find the most powerful central thing in that world, which is this diamond-shaped black or floating thing that it shoots a ray of pure evil and darkness all across this labyrinth that they're in. And when that ray hits you, you see the most horrible, evil, torturous things you can imagine and things you can't imagine. But anyway, I thought that was just a really cool concept. They didn't do enough with it. And the matte paintings of the Cenobites realm were just really, really detailed and cool and atmospheric for the movie. That's why I liked 2. 1 is good, but for some reason I liked 2. 3 is terrible, and 4, the one in space, is fine.
I've been wanting to watch 2 for a long time. I think I liked the remake better than the original, which is probably a controversial statement. But because I feel like it got the vibes of the story a little bit better. And I think it just is a production value difference. You can make, I think it's partly that the remake was, I think, done directly for Hulu. And, the streaming services spend a lot of money on those things, so it looks better. I think it's also easier to make a good looking movie in 2022 or whenever that came out than it was in 1980 whatever when the original one came out.
Yeah, for sure. I was just looking this up because, of course, our favorite Cardassian Taylor Garrick is a central character in the first, or the actor who plays him, Andrew Robinson, is a central character in the first movie. And then the one really bright spot in Hellraiser 3 is that Terry Farrell, Dax, is a central character in that one.
In number 3?
Yeah, in 3.
Man, she should have had a
And she's
better
a little
career than
younger
she had.
than in DS9 for sure. Well, she's still going, isn't she? Is she doing stuff?
I don't know. Um, uh, Going back to Lord of Illusions, it was nice to see Famke
Mm-hmm.
Jameson. I haven't seen her in much in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know she was in all the original X-Men movies, but I think of her first and foremost from being in GoldenEye. Is my preference. But Yeah, I'm really
Yeah.
excited about getting into this book series about Harry D'Amour. I'll let you know how that goes. But I like the idea of, I mean, that's not the first one of those, like a hard-nosed detective that's also like a paranormal investigator.
Yeah.
But like he's like I feel like paranormal investigators are usually in fiction depicted as being like occultish people, or I don't know, like being uh like Roma, or being like Van Helsing or something, but a guy that is more like a film noir stereotype.
Mm-hmm.
It was a cool twist. I liked it. Okay, let's do another question.
Did Columbo ever have any paranormal episodes?
That's a really good that's
Because
a
that would be
really
a
good
great mix.
question. I
Yeah.
agree.
Columbo Paranormal Investigator.
I like the idea of doing like a Columbo crossover um series where he
Mm-hmm.
gets involved in all kinds of different types of plots than what Columbo normally would get exposed
Right.
to.
And just one thing. You didn't bring the dirt from the place that you were killed or buried, did you? Or something along those lines. That was not the best Columbo impression
That was
or reference,
that
but
was
it was
in
bad.
fact
It was
the
bad.
worst Columbo
It was
impression I've
bad.
ever heard. That just sounded like you. Um, okay, you want to do? Should we do? And just as kind of a time check, it's 2 to 10. I don't think for those that joined a little bit late, I got my flu shot and my COVID shot today, and I'm starting to feel a little sluggish. So I don't know if we're gonna go for the whole other hour, but we have a couple other interesting questions to get into.
Let's do them.
Um, let's see what we got. All right, this one's kind of a bummer, but I think it's interesting. Did I get this cut off? It doesn't look like I have it all. My boyfriend, 26 male, broke up with me recently after 2 years because he's dealing with a serious health condition. He has surgery scheduled. Yeah, I'm definitely starting to fade away. Saying the word scheduled is becoming difficult. He has surgery scheduled early next year and told me that he feels like he should face this alone because he's worried about the impact on me and can't morally be with someone when there's a high chance he can die. I still care deeply about him. He is the love of my life and want to support him through this, but I'm unsure how to show him that without putting more pressure on him or overstepping. I've known since our first date he could have this condition, and I got into this relationship with knowing and wanting to stay with him and have been there every moment since. He broke up in person after taking me on errands with him, and I have no idea why he did that first instead of just breaking up right after. But I sent him a text after, and he said he will reply when he gets his thoughts straight. But it's been a week, and I haven't heard anything. I'm unsure if I should message him.
Wow.
So the boyfriend broke up because he has some kind of intense illness. He's getting ready to have some surgery. She's saying that he might not survive, and he doesn't want her to be around because he doesn't want to put her through that, is what he said. She doesn't know what to do.
Mm-hmm. I
Uh,
mean, I really think this is something that you have some experience in, or at least it's definitely more on your side of things to answer this question first.
yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I'd say it's tricky because you don't want to push back. I I'm a big fan of the idea that you don't need a reason to end a relationship with somebody beyond you don't want to be in a relationship with them anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, I have a hard time understanding where he's coming from only because I feel like this is what relationships are. I feel like I'm digging out all the classics for tonight. But nothing in life counts when things are easy. Relationships only count when things are hard. This is where a relationship matters, is when you're going through a struggle. If she loves him, she has a right to be there with him, to experience and witness this with him, and also to be there for him, to help in whatever way, if there's any way that she can help. Um, Sometimes just sitting in a chair next to someone's bed is super, super valuable.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't understand his his argument that it's not moral for him to be able to have her around when it's so clear that she wants to be. I mean, I guess that's the question, is when he said that to her, how much did she push back about it in the moment? Um, because I mean, I think that you need to walk a line without pushing too much, but you need to push a little bit, because this is what love is what love means. Is you're there when the other person goes through shit. You experience their shit with them, even if they don't make it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
that's what relationships are. That's what love ultimately, like you can say love is when you miss someone, even though you saw them all day, and love is you're not sick of somebody, and love is this, and love is that. But the nitty gritty, the actual like labor, the nuts and bolts of love is being there when someone else is at their worst. And I think that maybe the best way to proceed would be to reach out to mutual, I don't know if she like knows his parents or has some really good friends in common, or someone that he has kept around, and to see if they can kind of politely advocate for her, gently advocate for her, to remind him that she wants to be there. And I think that, I mean, he has a right to privacy. He has a right to go through his struggle in any way that he wants to. But she also, uh, if he loves her back the way that she loves him, I think that he has an obligation to at least let her in to some capacity.
Yeah,
I
I
certainly
I
wouldn't want
agree.
to be alone. I would want, I mean, however much it might be painful for everybody, I'd want the person that I love to be there with me when I'm going through that.
Yeah, I have never been in this headspace, so it's hard for me to put myself in his shoes. But I have the same feeling as you, that I don't understand what he means by saying, "Oh, it would be immoral for me to have you go through this awful
Yeah.
thing with me." That's not. I don't. For me, that doesn't sound like the right way of thinking about it.
Yeah.
And it sounds to me like he's going through something really scary and really serious, and maybe his thought processes are being clouded by that.
Yeah.
Uh,
Or like he thinks that he's gonna be like, I don't wanna you can't be around anymore. And then she's gonna be like, oh, okay, and then immediately go out and find someone that's healthy and fall in love with them, and then never have to suffer for his loss or suffer through what he's been through from her perspective. But that's
mhm,
already happening. That's inevitable. When you love someone, whether they're there or not, you suffering is going to negatively impact them too. Your
mhm,
death would negatively impact her too. It's not like she can just forget about you, um,
right.
or anything like that. So I hope that there's a way she can find to get him to let her back in. He should. Um, I mean, I'll give you an example, and this is totally a very long time ago. But when I've been through a number of serious health crises. But when I was going through the big one, when I was in college in my early 20s, and that was the time where it wasn't clear that I was going to make it. Obviously, I did. Um, I had knew that I was going in for major surgery. I was in college at the time, and I had this really, really close knit, really amazing like group of friends in college, and a girlfriend, and that was pretty early on in the girlfriend stage. We weren't like super close. Yeah, we weren't like super serious, but like we were on our way there. And I went in for my surgery, and everything went wrong. I was there for months and months and months, and was in progressively worse and worse shape in the hospital. And no one ever came. None of my friends or my girlfriend at the time came to visit me. And I uh, didn't know, I didn't understand why I was upset and I was hurt. And then later I found out that all of them had called my folks
Mm-hmm.
and asked when it would be okay for them to come and visit. And my parents
Mm-hmm.
told them not to because they, from coming from a place of compassion, thought that I wouldn't want my friends to see me. I mean, like I weighed like 70 pounds or something. Like I was in really bad shape. And that was probably the right thing to do. But also, that's a decision that I should have been able to make. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't have any like ill will or like frustration about that. They were, my parents were also going through a lot, and they made the decision that they thought was best at the time, and they were probably right. But I was hurt at the time that no one came to see me, um, and they, my parents were just trying to protect me. So in this case, I would have made the opposite choice that this guy made, which was probably the wrong choice,
Mm-hmm.
because I think it would have been really upsetting and kind of traumatic for my friends to see me. And the next time they saw me was after I'd had two more surgeries and I had had a couple months to recover, and I was doing better than I'd ever been in my life at that point. So they missed all of that, and I think that kind of helped uh, keep those friendships where they were. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that was probably the right thing to do. But also, I felt like I didn't. I would have liked to have made that choice at the time. So people aren't always making the best choices when they find themselves in these types of situations. But I think he's clearly making the wrong choice. This isn't like his college buddies or his
Mm-hmm.
girlfriend of like 3 months. This is his girlfriend of 2 years that loves him, and
Mm-hmm.
he needs to let her in. He has a right to privacy. He has a right to struggle with this in any way he wants to. But I, she, he. What's the best way to put this? I also think that he has a bit of an obligation to let her in.
Yeah,
Maybe
I think
he's
that's fair.
he's wants to end the relationship for some other reason, and this is his chicken
Right.
way of getting out of it too.
That's the other thing that occurred to me is that maybe there is something else at play
Yeah,
that's not what he said it was. But just going by what he said, like I said before, it sounds like he's confused and he's afraid, and
yeah,
he's making a bad decision because of that.
yeah. And I hope that there's some space in there for her to, and some support she can get from his circle that he is keeping around, um,
Hmm.
if he has one, that'll be able to, advocate for her to get him to let her back in.
Hmm.
Okay, here's the other question that mentions guilt.
Okay, I'm ready.
Is this the other one that mentions guilt? Yeah, this is really short. I saw this. This is coming from Reddit. It was like 20 paragraphs. And then at the
Hmm.
end there's a TLDR, and I just got the TLDR because it was very long. My husband restrains himself from having sex with me despite being obviously aroused because he believes it improves his work performance. How do I talk to him about this without making him feel guilty? Find different ways to be intimate and also not have myself sabotage this situation after waiting days on end and he finally comes to me to have sex. So this guy somehow has gotten into his mind that he works better. He's a more productive worker if he doesn't have sex for long periods of time.
Yeah, I this is not nearly as heavy as I thought it was going to be, Jeremy. It's a little funny, and the first thing that comes to mind for me is that maybe he's fallen down a right wing internet rabbit hole because that's one of the communities around that right wing bull crap, is the idea that if you don't come, that your testosterone will be higher and you'll be an alpha male, et cetera, et cetera. And I don't know if that's where this guy is coming from, but if this is a recent question, it's a strong possibility
Yeah, no, it is
that's
a recent question.
what's happening here.
That didn't occur to me, and now that you mentioned that, I feel like I've read things about that before. What's the point in being an alpha male if you don't get to come all the time? That's my question. What are we even doing as a species? The reason I wanted to bring this one up is because she says she has sexual needs that aren't being fulfilled, not because he's not able to. It doesn't even seem like because he doesn't want to, but it's because he has this nonsensical, potentially right-wing belief that he shouldn't. And so, I mean, I guess a couple of things. First off, if he thinks that he can't come, if he's choosing not to do that for his work purposes, what does that have to do with her? So if he can't do it, then there's lots of things he could do to make her come without having to worry about doing it himself. So what does that have to do with her? Is the first question I have.
Yeah, and like coitus interruptus is a thing, edging is the thing. There's lots of options here.
There is, but so is just good old fashioned going down on somebody and
right, exactly
about yourself in that particular moment. She's asking about how to talk to him about it without making him feel guilty. You know, that's the kind of the theme I feel like is if you feel guilty about something, you need to take a pause and make sure that what you're feeling guilty about isn't some kind of societal expectation or some weird hangups people have about sex, like the first letter writer that had sex on the first date and she feels guilty. That guilt is coming externally from unfair, outdated, and nonsensical social expectations. But if you're feeling guilty because your partner comes to you and says, I have needs that you don't seem to give a shit about, what are you going to do about it? Then you should feel guilty about that. If guilt is coming from inside you, then it's your subconscious, or not even your subconscious, telling you that you're doing something wrong and you need to listen to that guilt. Guilt can sometimes be a valuable tool when it comes to growing and learning and being a better partner or a better friend or a better whatever. You need to make sure you know where that guilt is coming from. And if it's external, then fuck it. But if it's internal, then listen to it and try to use that as a starting point to grow. And I think that's really the question here. She shouldn't worry about his guilt in this. She doesn't need to make him feel guilty. He should feel guilty on his own if she brings this up to him in the right way. I have these needs that aren't being met. I understand that you have this rule for yourself, but what does that got to do with me?
Yeah, guilt doesn't really even necessarily need to enter into it on his side. If he's assuming this is not the internet rabbit hole scenario that I outlined, assuming this is just some weird thing that he believes for some reason that not coming somehow makes him better at selling cars or whatever.
I'm going to go ahead and call it that it's some right-wing nonsense.
Yeah, it probably is. But like let's like in an ideal situation where this is just some weird stuff that he has somehow concocted for himself. And in the ideal situation where he's a good partner who can talk about these things with her, and say, "Oh my God, I didn't realize that it was, I should have realized this earlier, and I'm really sorry about that. Let's figure out how to make this work between us." In that like ideal situation, that's probably not what's actually going on. Guilt doesn't really even need to enter into it. I'm sorry, and feeling a twinge of guilt maybe for not thinking about it earlier, his partner's needs. Yeah, I can see that, but like. It doesn't necessarily have to be some kind of real heavy thing, even on his end of things, and certainly not on hers.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. That's got to be so frustrating when your partner decides to believe in something that's so clearly to the world nonsense, that has such a negative impact, such an immediate and negative impact on your life. Like, believe in whatever nonsense you want to believe in. It's a free country for now. But what does that got to do with me? I've been watching a lot of these videos that like break down there's this whole like industry on the internet of like flat earthers being like, oh, I figured it out, here's proof the earth is flat or whatever. And now there's like a whole separate industry of people that repost those, but then like sometimes in a mean, condescending way, but the ones that I like the most are in a very patient and kind of educating way, being like, actually, this is what you're seeing, and this is how we know that the earth is round, and you're misunderstanding this concept, or this isn't how it really works. Um, and there's so many of those. So I've seen a lot of these flat earther videos, not that I'm watching them directly, but they're being, what is it called? Remixed in someone else's video. In almost all of these, it's some baby boomer, or probably a little bit younger than that guy, and you can see in the background is always a wife or a female partner that is just over it and miserable. And but this is their thing that they've decided is their whole life, is that the whole world wants to trick them that space is real. And I don't know why. That's the one thing I don't understand about those people yet, is why does everyone want to trick you? And what's the motivation for making you think the earth is round if it's actually flat? What's their angle?
This is probably like the wrong thing for me to say on an advice show, but I have noticed, like, especially over the last few years, I've always sought to be able to like put myself in another person's shoes and understand how they got there, where they're coming from, even if I really disagree with them. But my capability or my energy level of being able to do that is starting to get lower, and there's just certain things that I do not understand, like in this context, not the question, but what you were just talking about. Like I always feel motivated to question something if I know that it would be something I really want to believe. Then I need to check it more and not less.
Yeah.
And it seems to me like a lot of people have the opposite inclination, is that if they have some kind of emotional or otherwise motivation to believe something, they have, they're not going to check it as hard as they would for something that they disagree with. I don't know. It's
a big
getting harder to put myself in those shoes.
And
anyway.
That's why the question that I really want to know is, what, from the flat earth people, now we've left behind the guy that thinks that he's not allowed to come. But the flat earth people, that's why I want to know what, because they always talk about how everyone's being fooled, how NASA's tricking people, how the scientists are tricking people. But I want to know why, because I think the answer to that is probably the explanation for why they so immediately accept such nonsense, is because whoever they think is behind it are people that they want to hurt. And so they can come up with this giant conspiracy theory, because at the end of the conspiracy theory, or the bad guys are the villains that are trying to trick everyone, and they're people that they already hated way before they understood anything about the the nonsense about flat earthing, and that they believe in it because inside that conspiracy theory, inside most conspiracy theories, is the ability to justify violence towards someone that they don't like.
And like, I know that this is not a political show, but getting a little broader with like the Trump phenomenon and all the right-wing nonsense around that. It's a similar type of situation. I think a lot of people, especially like of the progressive-minded variety of person, have gotten really tired of all of these anthropological expeditions to understand the mind of the Trump voter, and to try to like sane wash it in a way, and to present it as something that's a lot more complex than it really is. It has complex aspects to it, but it's not a mystery. Like the motivation behind that stuff, it's not some unanswerable crazy question. Sometimes the answer is pretty clear, And you've identified one of those things, which is that these stories, even if like it's a horrible, objectively horrible thing that they believe in, like some of the conspiracy theories on the right are, there's an emotional motivation for them to want to believe in it and not check it out too much.
Yeah.
So it sort of connects to what I was saying, which is, yeah, it seems like it's a very widespread phenomenon for people to fall into believing something that they don't want to, or that they have some emotional motivation to believe without checking it too hard. And like I said, it's becoming more difficult for me to put myself in that place. Of course I do it too. I'm not saying I don't, but like it's something that have always tried to be aware of.
Yeah, I mean that's called intellectual integrity, and I think that's the thing that's in short supply really everywhere, but more so. I mean, it's non-existent on the right, on the political right in America these days. Whatever, you know, every idea is equally valuable as long as it supports the party line, regardless of whether there's facts or evidence or sense to it in any way. But yeah, I mean, you know, every conspiracy theory has the word "they" in it, and whoever the word "they" in that context refers to, I think tells you everything about the motivation for the people to believe in that conspiracy theory, and it's because the "they." That's there's got to be a different way to put that sentence. Because they are a group of people that they want to cause harm to, that they almost always want to actually enact violence towards, but sometimes it's more of just they want to disenfranchise or push out of their communities or segregate or whatever. But it's usually just violence. And yeah, I read somewhere. I don't want to have that conversation. I don't have the energy for it. I'm dropping it.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah. All right, I got one more that's kind of cute.
Okay, wonderful.
I think, although there's parts of it that aren't, but we'll just hang on for the ride. I have a 15-year-old son, Casey, and a 7-year-old daughter, Kathy. There's no way that there's a 7-year-old anywhere in the world whose name is Kathy. There's no one under, I'm going to say 60 named Kathy in existence. But anyways, a 15-year-old son, Casey, 7-year-old daughter, Kathy. For the past few weeks, Kathy has been waking up frequently saying she heard something in the night. She was convinced a monster was coming into the house. I promised her it wasn't, assured her that monsters can't get into our house. I don't think that's the thing you assure a 7-year-old, but okay. And kept to myself the thought that it was possibly an animal was managing to get in somehow. Since we live in a semi-rural area, I did check, but I saw no evidence of that. Then last Tuesday at about 1 a.m., I heard something. I removed my gun from the safe, eye roll, and went slowly through the house. When I reached the living room, I saw Casey and another boy from the neighborhood, Alex, shirtless on the couch making out. I honestly don't know who was more surprised, the kids or me, but I immediately pointed my gun away. Good for you. Casey and Alex were both freaking out, babbling, trying to get their shirts back on. Alex left. I sent Casey to bed. The next day, my wife and I had a somewhat awkward coming out discussion with Casey. And I didn't copy the rest of that question from the internet. I don't know. I don't know. Give me a second. Let me see if I can find it again.
Sure.
I'm assuming that the question is like, how do they proceed with having a conversation? I guess, probably. I should be able to find it here really quickly. The next day, my wife and I had a somewhat awkward coming out discussion with Casey. We made it clear we don't have any problem with Casey liking boys, but we told him he couldn't have him sneaking around. If he wanted to bring a boyfriend over, he could just invite him. The trouble is that Alex doesn't want to come over anymore. I suppose I can't blame him. Blah, 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 blah. Sorry, I got a text message and it threw off my whole train of thought here. The trouble is that Alex doesn't want to come over anymore. I suppose I can't blame him. And Casey going over to Alex isn't an option, as Alex's parents apparently don't know their son is gay. And according to Casey, they are not the sort of people who would react well to that news. I feel as if I ought to relay an apology to Alex, but I'm not sure what to say, or if it would even do any good if I can't say it to him directly. I would like to talk to him and smooth things over. How do I go about fixing this?
Oh
Um,
boy.
well, the lesson there is you hear a bump in the night. It could be anything. An intruder is only one, and it's not ever going to be the most likely. So if you have a gun, maybe don't rush into a room pointing it at who you find. Maybe keep it pointed to the ground or something, I guess. And I don't know the tactical strategy behind that. But if someone sprung out on me pointing a gun at me in their house, and I was invited there by a person that lives in that house, I don't think I'd be super jazzed about wanting to go over there again either.
Yeah. I don't know if the letter writer's idea of speaking directly to this other young, teenage boy is the right way to go about it. That seems like it could be a lot of pressure, and there's already a lot of embarrassment involved here, clearly,
Yeah.
for good and bad reasons, maybe. And I don't know. I mean, I have never had any kind of so far outside of my experience, but
Yeah.
the general advice would be to somehow communicate through the son. Uh, you are welcome here. I'm very, very sorry about what happened. You're welcome here, and we accept you and our son as having this relationship. If you need somewhere to be, away from any kind of, there's a diplomatic way to say this, but what I'm really trying to say is if this kid has homophobic parents, then
Yeah.
they might need some place to go.
Yeah.
And to make it clear to this kid that if that is the case at any time, they have a safe place to go to.
That's what I was gonna say is a true a true example of allyship would be making an effort, and what that effort looks like is worth a longer conversation. But making
Yeah.
an effort to make sure that Alex does in fact feel welcome coming over your house, because
Hmm.
there are very high instances of teenagers becoming homeless because their homophobic, horrible parents kick them out onto the streets when they find out that they're gay.
Yeah.
So I think
Maybe
you,
like some kind of thing where they meet outside the house. Like they don't have to they could go out to dinner with this kid and their son
yeah,
for one thing if he's not comfortable coming to the house. And yeah, I mean like there's different ways of going about it, but I guess that would be the main thing is like to apologize for what happened, to try to make them feel less embarrassed about it. Although, of course, they're teenagers and it was an awkward situation. So, yes, they're going to feel embarrassed about it. And
yeah,
then also, like, very importantly, to make sure the kid knows that if he needs a safe space, it's there.
yeah. I think that having an invitation for Alex to, take him out to dinner, maybe have him over for like lunch on a Sunday afternoon or something, and just kind of like making sure that you're starting the process, not just for his sake and not just for the son's sake, who maybe really likes Alex and they want to spend more time together, but also just for Alex's sake, because a gay or a queer kid with homophobic parents is a treacherous place to be in, and I think that it would be wise
Yeah.
for them to ensure that Alex knows that he has a safe space at their house, if they're
Right.
prepared to follow through with that and make sure that he does in fact always have a safe space there. The
Yeah, and
thing,
also just not to be overbearing about it either, because who knows what the actual situation is between these two boys.
yeah,
It might not be like a romantic type. I mean, it has romantic aspects to it clearly, but it might not be like, oh, I want this person to be my boyfriend. We're going to be in each other's lives, et
yeah,
cetera, et cetera. I can also see. I can imagine parents being way overbearing about it and making it even more awkward through doing that. So it's a delicate balance, I guess.
That's fair. I think that asking Casey at least what he wants, not necessarily making sure he
Yes.
understands that doesn't necessarily mean what he's going to get, but what kind of relationship does he want to have with Alex? To me, 15, I feel like is a little young for boyfriend sleepovers, girlfriend sleepovers. But I'm pretty sure that Fred Undead disagrees with that she thinks that's a good age for it. So, we got about a decade until we have to cross that bridge for our kid. I think that 15 is definitely an appropriate age, though, to have we've talked about that on the show before, too, to have the safe sex basket in a publicly accessible place in the bathroom that's full of condoms or lube or whatever else you think is important for young people exploring to have access to. And then to check on it periodically and refill it with no questions. You should make it easy enough. I mean, ideally, you make it so your kid feels comfortable to ask you for those things when they need them. But that can be a challenging thing for anybody. So making sure that they don't have to ask if they don't feel comfortable doing that, but they have access to those types of things anyways. I think is a good. I think 15 is a great age to have that in place already. 16, 17 is probably when I would be okay with dating partner, whatever, sleepovers, I guess. Just keep it down.
You don't have to worry about it for a while now, Jeremy.
I
so
don't. Yeah, I think unless Casey really hates Alex's guts now, trying to reach out to make sure that Alex knows, regardless of what his relationship is with Casey, that he's got a safe place to go to if his parents ever become dangerous or threatening or literally kick him out, which happens all the goddamn time in this country, unfortunately. I don't understand how anybody could ever do that.
Yeah. You and I, for this episode, have said I don't really understand where this person is coming from a lot. Not that that's a bad thing, because the things that we were saying it to are some guy who wants to sell more cars, or I don't know if he's a car dealer, but that's in my head. Like, oh yeah, I'm not going to come so that I can sell this Honda.
Right. I got to get the sales numbers up for the quarter. That's what I was thinking too. It was all about productivity. You said something before about how your patience for this kind of action is getting shorter and shorter. Patience for people that are into some kind of nonsense bullshit.
Yeah, patience for sure, but more than that, I literally just can't put myself in. I feel like I'm not able to put myself in the shoes of some types of people as much as I used to be able to. And the effort, the patience is definitely an aspect of it, but it's also just like even imagining it is becoming more difficult.
I feel like my patience for that kind of behavior is less and less and less, but my patience for almost every other type of behavior is more and more and more.
Sure.
So I feel like I've been I hate to say like giving up, but I've been having a harder time getting to a place of empathy for some types of behavior, for people exhibiting some types of behavior. But I hope so, at least I've been working really hard at it to get to a place of empathy for much more and a broader set of behaviors than I used to.
That's a good point. It's definitely not global for me either. It's not like my patience for everyone, for every little thing that annoys me is being worn down. It's only very specific things. And then again, the other thing, as one gets older, you get more knowledge and you have more experiences with more people. And in that way, it becomes easier to imagine why somebody might do something, because you've seen it and had to deal with it before with other people. And in that sense, my patience grows, and my ability to put myself in other people's shoes and recognize similar situations that I've seen in the past. That part of it is still growing. It's just a certain set of I'll just say right wing nonsense that I have. I cannot. It's not like I ever was really like fully, oh, I understand you with that stuff, but it's definitely gone down. And it's not just about me. I know it's not just about me. It's about their becoming a crazy cult also, and going way off the map.
Yeah.
It's something that's happening outside of me, but also inside.
Yeah. Yeah. That describes it to me. The bar has gotten lower, but my patience for anything that comes in under that bar has also gotten way lower. But then my patience for everything
Perfect.
above the
Yeah.
bar has gotten, I hope, much deeper and broader. I hope.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. I think that's the best statement of how I feel too.
Um. Okay. Well, that does it for the day. Um. Lots of exciting things happening in October. I'm going to have a panel of moms. We're all going to talk about Rosemary's Baby with a bunch of moms, what it means for them. I said before we're going to do the Hellraiser original versus remake side by side comparison. And I think at one point I'm going to do the Abominable Dr. Phibes. It's an old Vincent Price movie I always wanted to watch. So we got a lot going on. Boy, I don't sound excited about it right now because I don't know if this happens to you when you get vaccines, but I get a little sick. Usually
Oh
just for a
yeah.
day, and I'm struggling. I double dosed this morning, and it's been hitting me more and more since we've been here. I'm feeling it now. That's a good reminder, though. Everybody, get your flu shots. Make sure you're updated on COVID. Just get your kids all the vaccines. Come on, people. It's the 21st century. We don't need to be spending time arguing these things that have saved millions of people's lives and have just gotten better and better. There's mountains and mountains of data that says that vaccinating yourself and vaccinating your kids doesn't just keep you safer, but keeps everybody else safer. Please listen to science. This isn't the Middle Ages. We're post Enlightenment over here. We've done this already. Some ideas are more valuable than other ones, especially the ones that have peer-reviewed, repeatable scientific research behind it. So let's go back to moving into the future. Doesn't that sound nice? Instead of trying to make the Middle Ages happen again. Stop trying to make the Middle Ages happen again is what I'm trying to say. This has been the Advice Stream. I'm your host, Jeremy International. I was joined tonight, as I so often am, by my friend and yours, meme extraordinaire, Oldmin. We will be back next week at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, same place. And we're going to be talking about horror movies. We're going to be hopefully answering people's questions as they come in. Be safe, be patient with yourself, and stop trying to make the Middle Ages happen.